Lovely cushion header.
Hello and welcome back to the Premier League Trio podcast. My name is Hader and I'm your host as usual today. I hope you're all having an absolutely wonderful weekend. And I'm really delighted today to be joined by Aaron Barton, who covers the Portuguese Football League in great depth. He's got phenomenal analysis on his page, PROXIMA JORNADA. And it's just an honor because, you know, we're seeing a lot of great Portuguese players in the Premier League and we're seeing the Portuguese national team, which for me is probably up there with the best in the world now. So Aaron, without further ado, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thank you very much. That was a glowing introduction there. So, yeah, thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to it.
No problem at all. I've been looking forward to this for a while as well. And let's just start with the Portuguese national team because I saw a tweet yesterday. I don't know if it's from you, it might have been from someone else, but they were saying that they feel a bit sad for Cristiano Ronaldo that he is the age he is because this team's phenomenal. You're looking at the talent coming through. I would argue it's up there with the best in the world. I mean, what's your view on the Portuguese national team? And do you agree with that sort of view that it's probably up there with, you know, the likes of, I would say, Germany?
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you're looking at the youth that's coming through that hasn't yet came through. The next couple of years there's another golden generation brewing at the moment. And just on the Cristiano Ronaldo point, I think definitely he's been lucky, but he's been unlucky because he's managed to obviously win Portugal their first ever piece of silverware in the European Championships in 2016. But his career has sort of came between two golden generations. So the first golden generation of about the Euro 2000, by the time he came into the team, Euro 2004, it was starting to come to the end of its cycle. So the likes of Luis Figo, Rui Costa, Deco, Nuno Gomes, players like that. And you were seeing this new generation of players come through, the ones who then will carry on to the 2006 World Cup, the 2008 European Championships, 2010 World Cup. And then recently, say in the last year or two, this new generation of players are brewing. Now we're sort of the old guard are being phased out, and we're seeing players like Bernardo Silva and Bruno Fernandes sort of come to the fore on the international stage last night. So I'm sorry, in general, and then looking at last night, it was a real coming of age performance, to be honest. But in terms of Cristiano, yeah, sort of found himself just in the middle of these two great generations. And if he was, say, a couple of years older and he was part of that Euro 2000 team, who knows if they could have managed to win something and pull it off. They were very close on numerous occasions. And then obviously he looks to just be a little bit too old to be a part of this generation going forward. He obviously still has a part to play with the national team. I mean, it's Cristiano Ronaldo. He'll run himself into the ground for the national team as he always does. But yeah, it feels like the cycle sort of coming to an end with him and the old guard and this new guard that are coming in. Yeah, it's a frightening prospect. The under-21 side at the moment. Obviously, a lot of those players haven't made that step up to the senior level, but those themselves are just frightening. It's a frightening generation, to be honest. I think it will be up there as one of the best in the world, if not the best in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Yesterday's performance definitely was one for me, which made me stand out. Croatia are no slouches, and to win in that fashion quite convincingly was very impressive. But before we go on and talk about my favourite player, Bruno Fernandes, let's talk about what prompted you to set up a Portuguese football page, and why have you got such an interest in Portuguese football?
The amount of times I've been asked this question, and each time I'm not trying to articulate it. So it's been a passion way before it was something to do as like a job. I've been into Portuguese football since about 7 or 8 years old. So I remember watching Euro 2004 and just becoming obsessed at that point with the national team. I loved watching them. I loved that group of players. I loved, obviously, that Mourinho side, the 2004 Porto side. But it was more national team that I was into. And then obviously as I was getting older, I'd started to dabble in the club football side of things when I could, just watching them in the Champions League and the UEFA Cup as it was at that time. And then, yeah, it sort of just developed. It always stayed with me. They were always my go-to team when it was in international tournaments. I was always Portugal. That was just the team that I fell in love with. And yeah, obviously they had the numerous clashes with England over the years growing up as well. So that was always fun. So I always had all the Portugal kits as a kid, and so it was just something that I loved, to be honest. And then, as I say, got to about 15, 16, and started taking obviously a deeper interest into the domestic side of it, and being able to actually access the games now. Obviously, the advancement of the internet and stuff, everything got a lot easier. Social media, to keep in touch with that side. And then by the time I got to 17, 18, I was old enough and independent enough then to go abroad, to fly to Portugal, to go and watch games. So the first game I went to Estadio do Dragão, which is FC Porto Stadium, to watch Porto via Borussia Dortmund in the Europa League. And that was just like a mind-blowing experience, because I've been to Portugal obviously numerous times before growing up with family, but it was just great being there amongst the fans, and this was that team that I'd watched on the TV, over and over and over. So that was a real big point. And then I think in terms of when the website started and the journalism aspect started, I was just looking for English language based Portuguese analysis, real in-depth stuff, and the things that were circulating at that time, they were good. There's many good journalists that study Portuguese football, but I just wanted to do it in my own way. And I thought, right, well, I can't find the type of journalism that I want, so I'll go ahead and do it. And I just studied English literature in university, and then I went on to do a PGCE doing teaching. And it was when I was doing that, I sort of divided my time between trying to produce articles and podcasts and sort of just get it off the ground. And it just took off, to be honest. I didn't know that many people were interested in that side of the game. So just sharing the game as I call it, was just, it was fantastic. It was one of the best decisions I've ever made. So yeah, still 24 years of age now, going on 25, but still in love with it as much as I was when I was 7, 8 years old.
That's an absolutely great story. I followed you for a long time now. I think I've followed you for maybe 2-3 years, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, you're the go-to page for me when it comes to Portuguese football, and we're seeing a lot of talent come out of Portugal, and it's great to see it in English as well, because I think a lot of these sort of foreign leagues, you haven't got much quality English pages, so I think that's really great. But before we talk about some of the talent, let's talk about the impact of COVID. Obviously, that's affected everyone, around the world, even the football business, because obviously football's a business which has bags and bags of money, but even massive football clubs, pretty much everyone is financially impacted in some way, even the richest and biggest clubs in the world. So what impact has that had on the Portuguese league? Because you can't really say that it's obviously up there in terms of money and revenue like the Premier League. And has the impact been, really, really tough for the teams there, or have the bigger teams sort of managed to work through it and look in a comfortable position?
Well, it's a dual-edged sword, really, because with Portugal, obviously there's less finances, so you'd think that COVID would be, an overall negative thing, but it goes both ways, really, because Portugal don't rely so much on the streaming and the international streaming and the TV rights deals, whereas, say, somewhere in England, when those games stopped and those TV deals, there was a scare of, these clubs going to get paid out from the likes of Sky and BT and things like that. And I know France had a similar issue, whereas in Portugal, it's never really been that widely televised anyway, so it weren't like they were losing anything. And then you've got to look at the things like gate returns and gate receipts, not getting fans into the ground. What's that going to do to the clubs? Again, in Portugal, gate returns aren't that high. Apart from the top 3-4 teams, the attendances aren't very high. So those clubs in the Premier League, yeah, of course, it's detrimental. They're not getting, that revenue through the club. But if you've never had that money in the first place, then when you don't have it now, you're not missing it as much, if that makes sense. Whereas I think somewhere like the Premier League, where something like this can be catastrophic because there's so much money involved. So as soon as that money's taken away, or there's even a threat that this money's is going to be taken away, it can be, catastrophic. Whereas in Portugal, we're seeing, I mean, it's been very hard, as it has been across the world, for the lower league teams, because I think those funds, they need those generally to survive. But I think in Portugal, they're smart with the finances in terms of they know what they are. They know the league appeal. They know how much they should be getting in. The marketing strategies, that's all sort of taken care of. And Portugal's always been more of like a sell to buy league. It's always been somewhere where teams have went to, knowing that these Portuguese teams will sell their players perhaps under the odds. It's like a conveyor belt of talent. So for Portugal, it's nothing new, to be honest.
No, that's very interesting, and that's definitely something that I agree with, because when you look at, for example, Man United, their match day revenue. I'm a United fan, so their match day revenue is about 100 million per season, or their ticket revenue. So that's a massive hit on the revenue stream. So no, absolutely, that's very interesting. But let's talk about sort of one of the joys of the past season for me, and that's been the arrival and the impact of the Portuguese Magnifico, Bruno Fernandes. I'm telling you now, when it was the summer last year when we were looking to sign and we didn't, I was absolutely gutted, because I've watched a lot of him, especially obviously being interesting when at Sporting. His numbers were just phenomenal. He was putting Frank Lampard-esque numbers, for the past few seasons, and he's come to the Premier League, and I think a lot of people probably doubted whether he could. I hate the term, and look, I don't think this, but it's just such a derogatory term, the Farmers League. You hear that about the French league, and there's immense talent in the French league. There's so many great players. The Portuguese league is the same, but you hear this. Yeah.
Sorry, carry on. Sorry.
That's okay. No problem. That's fine. No problem. So you hear this, the Farmers League sort of thing. And I think a lot of people doubted whether Bruno Fernandes could come in and settle in so quickly. And I think what's been so impressive is that he's almost not even taken a dip down in his form. He's just gone in and become even better. And he's lifted the club. And as a United fan, we were in such a difficult situation upcoming to January. I think the manager was looking down at the barrel. He was probably close to the sack, and one has come in and just changed the outlook of the club. But what I've been so impressed with, not only have his numbers been great, I mean, in the Premier League, he's got 8 goals and 7 assists, which is absolutely phenomenal considering he's just slotted straight in. And the Premier League is a fast league, it's a difficult league, it's a physical league to get involved and to settle in with. But for me, it's that mentality piece. He's captain material. He's walked in and he's lifted everybody around him. So my question to you is, are you surprised at how easily he's taken to Premier League football? And what have you been impressed with? And how far can he actually go?
Yeah, no, I think you sum it up very well there. It's sort of that captain material, the fact that he can go into a team and lift them up. And no, I'm not surprised, to be honest. I a couple of months before he arrived, in fact, it was a couple of months after the initial deal fell through last season, and I was asked about, is it a good thing that it fell through, and is the Premier League really for him? And I remember distinctly saying, if United go back in for him and they manage to get him next season, which I think that they will, that he'll go in and he'll do a job from day one. He's not a player that needs this adjustment period. He's not a player that's going to be shocked by, the rise in quality and see someone, as you say, his form hasn't completely dipped off. It's sort of just remained consistent. Now, I think a lot of us who watch the Portuguese League closely and watch the national team closely and know the ins and outs of these players, for a fact who, obviously every transfer is a risk. Every player could go to a league and just not hit it off. But with someone like Bruno, it was sort of, we all knew that he was going to go and put those kind of numbers up, because that's just the type of player that he is. And again, when he was signed, I went on to another podcast as a guest, and I said he will just continue to put up these numbers. And I think that the critique was but it's a new league. It's, he's not tried and tested, and, he's coming from a farmers league. So how is he able to maintain that level of consistency? And just because he's that type of player that United needed, he has managed to just bring them up the field. I think that's the thing I've been most impressed with, is that I think that United team, especially in midfield, just looked lackluster at times. They looked like there was talent on the pitch. United are never not going to have talent on the pitch, but it's sort of like there was nobody that was grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck. And then obviously you had key players missing, the likes of Pogba out the side with injury, and it was sort of like, we need someone who's going to come in and say, right, I'm going to be the leader, I'm going to steer the ship this way. This is where we are in the table. This is where we're aiming to get to. We're not going to do that until we get up the pitch. Now, one of the biggest critiques as well of Bruno is it was the same as when he was in the Portuguese League to now. It's just passing how he gives the ball away. And I have always said from day one, I would rather have a player that tries to play 9 through balls and fails on all 9, but that 10th ball, he'll slide someone in and you score the opener, rather than have someone who finishes the game with 98% passing accuracy. But what did he do? Who did he pass it to? Did he just go sideways and go backwards? And did he just keep things ticking over? Bruno will take the ball and perhaps try and shoot from a wild distance, or he'll try and play in a pass that it's not really on. But you look at his numbers and you think that's because he just keeps going and going and going. He will shoot, and he won't be deterred by the fact that, the keeper might be having a good game. He'll keep going, like in the game against Everton. And sometimes he'll catch a keeper off guard, and he's got your team a goal, which is what I think a team like United needed. They needed someone who was willing to take risks, who was willing to, might have came off the pitch with a 75 passing accuracy, but I've got 2 assists and a goal. So you can't measure everything in metrics. You can't measure everything just in, you've got to actually watch the performance and see what he's doing. And I think he has been that spark, that catalyst. I watched the end of the game. I forget who United were playing. Was it in the Europa League, when he said to one of the opponents, like, he's helping us. He's helping us transform Manchester United. And obviously you can't put it all on Bruno, but I think what he has done is he's made those players around him play better. So now you're starting to see the likes of the other players in the team start to get on the ball now. They're getting chances because he's in there making things happen. That's what you need. You need a player who's going to make things happen, and I think that's exactly what he is.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal analysis of him. And I completely agree, and especially on the point where you say, when people talk about that pass accuracy, and that's something which, look, United fans have, we're a spoiled bunch, put it that way. We're a spoiled bunch. We've had years and years of success, and look, it's been a difficult 7 years. Football works in cycles. Teams win and teams win for a period and they lose for a period, or they don't win for a period. It's just football. But United fans have been starved of a player of that sort of quality. We've seen Pogba come in. Pogba, I think, is probably more talented than Bruno, but the whole mentality piece, I would say Bruno's got a better head on his shoulders, and I think that goes a long way to being a top player. You could have all the talent in the world. We've seen so many players with great talent, but if you don't have that mentality and, sort of, I suppose, that will to win the whole time, then you won't make it. But this point on Bruno taking risks, I saw on Man United Twitter after, I can't remember which game it was, but there are people that actually criticize Bruno for this. What would you say to that, though? Would you say that he's not going to change, or is it just an aspect of his game which he does need to improve? Would you say that the risk taking, for me, that's important, but do you think that his passing accuracy does need to improve?
Yeah, in some aspects, yeah, because he's not the finished article. Even at the age that he's at, he's the type of player who will continually want to improve. He's not a player who will be happy with this is who I am as a player, I'm going to completely stick to this. Yeah, he's always going to take risks, but he will be working on his passing, and he'll be working on perhaps when to take those risks. And obviously in the Portuguese League, it's not as big of a risk because there's not as much at stake when you're playing for a club like Manchester United. I mean, I guarantee there'll be more criticism of his passing accuracy, even if he gets a goal and assist, than it ever would have been at Sporting, because the sort of mentality there is he can keep trying those risks, and if it ends up winning us the game, that's fine. But sometimes at a club like Manchester United, winning's not enough. So yeah, you might have slid someone in, you might have set someone up, or you might have slid someone in who won as a penalty, or you might have scored the winning goal. But 70% passing accuracy, you were sloppy on the ball all game. So you can't do it all sometimes. But yeah, no, he'd be working on that, and I think that's the type of character he is. He has continually got better throughout his career, as a player should. He's willing to take ownership as a captain of his own performances, and I think you saw that early on in his career when he went to Italy. So when he went over to Italy, it was sort of bounced a bit, didn't play consistently, was a bit rash on the ball, a bit raw. Then he's came to Portugal, he started to develop, and then the player that you sort of saw at the end of the time was a lot better than the player a couple of years prior. And now he's went to Manchester United. He's looking to now take himself to that next level, and that will happen. He will continue to develop. He's now playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world. He's playing with a higher caliber of players. He's going on international duty and playing with some of the best players in the world. He's doing something right. He will continue to get things right. He will continue to get things wrong as well. But I guarantee if he puts up those type of numbers next year, the passing accuracy shouldn't be the thing that we're looking at. It should be, look at what he's accomplished with this team. He's came in, he's grabbed the team by the scruff of the neck. And just to go back on what I was saying about the Portugal performance last night, I think he is the type of player, myself and a friend, we were talking about this, that he needs to be the leader. That's what he's always been. That's what he was at Sporting. They were going through, or they still are going through, one of the worst periods in the club's history. So he was like this shining light. He was this beacon of hope. And when he left, it was sort of like, okay, now that's gone. But now he then went to a Manchester United side that also needed a little bit of hope, a little bit of faith. And he's came in and did the same thing. And then, as I say, last night's Portugal performance, he sometimes looked a bit passive when he's playing for the national side, and maybe that's because he's not the leader when you've got the likes of Ronaldo on the pitch. Now, last night was one of the best performances I've seen from him in a Portugal shirt. He was instrumental. He was controlled the game. He made the right passes. He made the right choices. He looked comfortable. I don't think that's a coincidence that Ronaldo isn't on the pitch. I think that's him thinking, right, okay, I've arrived now. I'm at Manchester United now. The previous times I've been on international duty, I've been a sporting player, I've been a Portuguese League player. Now I'm at one of the biggest clubs in the world. I'm going to take this game by the scruff of its neck. I'm going to be the person who influences proceedings. And it was a real coming of age performance for him. I was really pleased with him last night amongst many of the other players. But no, I thought he was fantastic. And I think going into next season, he'll continue to work hard, and I think next season you'll see a better Bruno than we saw this season, which is only a good thing for United fans.
Absolutely. It might be a bit premature to say this, but I honestly want to see him challenging De Bruyne at the top as the most creative player in the league, because I think he's got that in him. But before we move on to Dalot, because he's a player that I rate quite highly, but on Bruno, there's a lot of debate on what position he plays best, whether he's an 8 or he's better further up as a 10. For me, looking at the way United play, I think the 4-2-3-1, obviously he's the furthest one forward. I would like to see actually maybe 2 8s, a 4-3-3 with a, let's say a Matic there, and Pogba and Bruno both taking, more of a, maybe Bruno a bit further back, Pogba a bit more further forward, because I think United then would have more of an attacking threat from midfield. But you've watched him obviously a lot as well. Where do you think he excels in?
To be honest, personally, I prefer him in the 8 than a 10. Because I feel like sometimes especially when he's playing as a 10, but he's playing so high up, it's almost like he's playing as like a false 9 or like a second striker, that I feel sometimes he's so high up the pitch, it doesn't give him the space to move and try and find his range with his passing. So as you say, if he's in with 2 8s, he's in like a double pivot, or he's playing as a number 8 in the middle of the park, then he's got that range. Then he's got the whole pitch to look for. He's got areas to play those through balls and to slide in wingers and play clip balls and just dominate the midfield. Whereas obviously you lose a little bit of that when you go further forward, because your job then is solely to support striker, and you're not dropping deep as much. But when he was at Sporting, he played well as a number 8. But I think when you've got a player that's that got that much versatility, and he's got that much in his locker, in his arsenal, that you can play him as a number 10, you can play him as a number 8. I've saw him play deeper than that. I've saw him play almost like would you say like a regista? I've saw him play out wide,
like a 6,
yeah.
6 sort of deep, controlling the tempo of the game.
I've saw him play out wide. I've saw him he'll put a shift in wherever you put him, I think, and he doesn't stop running. So I think that when you've got him in the number 8, you've got someone that's getting up and down the pitch. And again, when he first joined, I can't remember what match it was. It was like the 91st minute, and he was sprinted to the other end of the pitch to close down, and someone was passing back to the keeper, and it was like he ran something stupid as well. He clocked up more kilometers on the pitch than any other player, and in the 91st minute, he's doing things like that. I think when you've got that beating heart in midfield, then it's as I say, it's great for Portugal, it's great for Man United. But no, I do like him in central midfield, and I would like to see him working in tandem, as you say, with Pogba, perhaps a little bit deeper, and just sort of giving Pogba that freedom to then go and roam, and if they've got a defensive player, perhaps even in a 3 who'll support, or like a deep line playmaker, as someone who can just marshal in front of that back, like a number 6. Someone like Nemanja Matic, then I think it just frees up that creativity. And if he can help Pogba become another player, Pogba's another player that I just rate so highly. And I know a lot of people get on his back. And, that it's understandable sometimes that players, but I think it comes more out of the frustration that everybody knows how good of a player he is. You mentioned before, Pogba then technically he's a better player than Bruno Fernandes every day of the week. But it's just getting him into that team, and it's getting him fit and firing. And if you can see that next season, then I think again, it should be quite a spectacle if those two are firing on all cylinders. Just going to pop this on charge.
That's okay, no problem. No, I completely agree with that. I think that's what Bruno's done for Pogba. Bruno's come in, and Pogba was obviously that only creative outlet in midfield, and Bruno coming in has taken the emphasis off Pogba completely. And I don't think Bruno, as you said, obviously, Pogba, as you said, obviously he's more technical. I agree with that, but I don't think Pogba has that leadership aspect to his game. I don't think if you tell him to be the main man, he can quite do that. But Bruno coming in has taken that leadership onus off him. And I think what you're seeing now is that Pogba looks a much better player. He's playing probably his best football for me. He's keeping it simple. He's dictating the play from a bit deeper. But I agree with you. I'd like to see him further up and playing with 2/8s. For me, that depends on who's playing at defensive midfielder. I think Matic is a wonderful player, technically very gifted, but he's not getting any younger. Someone maybe with more legs there would probably allow Pogba and Bruno to play as 2/8s. But let's move on to Diogo Dalot, because he came to United with, I think, very high hopes. He was very highly rated at Porto, and Jose Mourinho brought him in for, I believe, about £20 million. And I look at him, and there's clearly a lot of talent with the lad. He's able to play further up, I think, as a right winger. We've seen that a few times. He can play, obviously, at fullback, either side, left or right. But the problem, I think, is that, one, I think his injury record is a bit concerning. He's clearly someone that has got injured quite a lot during his time at United. And maybe, 2, his defensive positional awareness maybe is a little bit... He's still young. He needs to develop that. So how highly is he rated in Portugal? How highly do you rate him? And why is he not getting a look in? Look, for me, I think it's purely because there's probably something going on behind the scenes with Oli and Dalot. But do you think that he's someone that can go on and become a very, very good player around Europe?
I should hope so. And I got the feeling from as soon as he was sort of banished, and you were seeing him not appear in match day squads, and that is he going to have to go somewhere else to accelerate his future? I mean, he's still very young. He's still got a lot to give, obviously. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I've heard like ruffles and stuff, but nothing concrete. I hope it's not down to him. I hope it's not like a mentality thing, or it's like a work ethic thing. But he was very highly rated. FC Porto is someone that I pay close attention to, and he was for the youth sides he hadn't played much senior football, to be honest. So it was a surprise when that much was paid for him. But he's a player that he's got so much to give. He's so good, especially particularly going forward. Defensively, yeah, he is probably a little bit lacking. I think I saw on Twitter somebody the other day mentioned about Wolves going in, and obviously I know sometimes it sounds a little bit lazy journalism, Portuguese player linked to Wolves, but I think in the system that they operate with that three at the back with the two wing backs, getting him further up the pitch might be something that he needs, where he's got that defensive protection, where he's not too reliant on that, and he can get up and he can help attacks because he's fit enough to get up and down the pitch, and he's a good defender. He's not a terrible defender, but he is probably better going forward. He's, as you say, he's versatile. He can play on the left, he can play on the right, he can play further up the pitch. He just sort of hasn't hit it off, and it's, as you say, it's been since under Mourinho, and now obviously you're under Ollie. You're seeing him still not really get a look in, and you're seeing other players going ahead of him. And you're thinking, are they better than him? Okay, so but we don't know what happens at football clubs, and there's a big mystery when we see players not in match day squads, so we see players that we know have got a lot of talent, not anywhere near the starting 11, and we think, what's going on? And it seems like things just don't get leaked from certain clubs, and nothing's really came out about in the press about what's going on behind the scenes. So I think I'm just as clueless as we all are, to be honest with it. You might know a bit more, to be honest, than I do with an ear to the Manchester United centred news, but I just hope to see him, whether it be at Manchester United or whether it be somewhere else. I want to see him playing games. I want to see him affecting games. If he has to move for that to happen, then United, if they don't see him as a viable option going forward, maybe they think he's too risky defensively to play in the Premier League, maybe he's not fitted for that system, then the right thing might be just to move on. But then obviously United are going to want to recoup what they pay for him and make sure that they get the return on it. But I don't know what's going to happen with him. It's sort of like he's stagnating a bit. He's in a bit of a lucky position, to be honest, because he's at a period of his career where he's still so young that when he moves on, if he can try and get over what's happened at United, then he's still got so many more years left to give. It's not as if he's 26 and 27 and the next move is the most important move of his life. He's still in his mid. I think he's 21 at the minute. I don't know his actual age.
I think he's just a year older than Brandon Williams. Yeah. And that's the thing that I find puzzling, because I completely agree with you. He's one player. Look, the problem is that you know this on football Twitter. There's always two camps, isn't there? There's always two extremes. There's one extreme where he's amazing, he's generational, he's not that good. I think he's talented, but he's not that good. Then there's the other camp that's saying he's awful, he can't defend. Again, that's not true. The truth is always somewhere in the middle, isn't it? You look at both sides, and what I sort of deduce from the situation is that looking at who's ahead of him, I think Wan-Bissaka rightly probably is the starting right back. You spent 50 million on a player, and he's excellent defensively. Going forward, he's not the best. It's just crazy that someone like Fosu Mensah is 3 years out of United. He hasn't played a game, and he's just coming in and overtaking him. That to me doesn't suggest it's an ability thing. There's clearly something else going on behind the scenes. I mean, I've asked a lot of people, I've asked journalists, and no one knows. United keeping it very close to their chest. So, and then you look at the left back situation. Luke Shaw, he's starting. He probably is the first choice. But after that, if you're looking at two right-footed left backs, because Brandon Williams is the same, I definitely think Dalot is much more effective going forward. I think he's a better player, but it is what it is. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. And you mentioned Wolves, so I do want to ask you about the very impressive project that we're seeing grow from strength to strength at Wolves. And as you obviously mentioned, lazy journalism, Portuguese player linked to Wolves. I mean, it's not far off the truth. You're looking at the large contingent of excellent Portuguese players, and also obviously the manager Nuno Espirito Santos. Give your thoughts. I'm not going to ask you about everyone because we might be here all day, but give me your thoughts on three in particular I want to ask you about. Diogo Jota, Ruben Neves, and Neto. And it was great to see Jota score yesterday. I think he's really had a brilliant season. Up front with Raul Jimenez, I'm a big fan of Jimenez. I know he was at Benfica. He is the perfect number 9 in the Premier League. He's Raul Jimenez is very strong. He holds the ball up well. He's an absolute predator in the box. But Jota's just gone from strength to strength. He scored, I believe it was 11 or 12 goals in the Premier League. He looks an excellent player. And for me, he's someone that could go on and make a move, to one of the bigger clubs in the Premier League or even around Europe. Ruben Neves is obviously another one that's very highly rated. I think he's dropped off a little bit this season. I haven't heard or seen as much sort of praise pushed his way. I think maybe you can talk about it better, what's been going on with him, but he's not been as effective. I know he was linked to the likes of City and United the season before, and I still think there's a great player in there, and he looks brilliant. And then Neto is obviously young, which is sort of broken through the season. He's just a very exciting young player. Is he going to play much now that we'll talk about the new signing in a bit, but is he going to play much now that there's new signings here? And what do you expect from him next season?
We'll start off with Pedro Neto. So he is, as you mentioned, he's a very exciting young talent. He's quick, he's technical, he's very good with the ball. He likes to cut inside. He's there's elements of his game that are very Bernardo Silva-esque, I think. And I do expect them to feature a bit more, but it all depends on, and I can bring Diogo Jota in on this because there's been similar frustrations that I lied at him because of this. Is depends on what system they go with, because sometimes they'll go with the opt to play a front three, and if they play a front three, obviously you've got Raul who plays as the striker in the middle, and then Jota sort of gets shifted out onto the wing with Adama Traore on the other side. Now, Jota tends to play worse when he's in this role because he doesn't affect the game as much, but Wolves on the whole tend to play better. And then when they play with the 3-5-2, they play with him as a striker up there with Raul. He gets more goals and assists, but Wolves fans prefer them with a front three. They think they're a bit more dynamic, especially when Adama Traore is on the pitch. So he's had a good season. He was a little bit up and down, and I think quite a lot of Wolves fans have been quite frustrated with him this season. I saw they were hosting it wasn't Wolves themselves, it was like a fan page. They were like best player, biggest surprise, and then like biggest letdown, and lots of people were voting Diogo Jota, saying like he just didn't give us what we thought. I think it was that constant shifting between being up front, being out wide, then his form dropped off a little bit. But he's, as you say, his goal return was still fantastic. He's still a very, very good player. I think going forward, I mean, what happens now? They've got Jota, who likes to play in a central role, or essentially as a second striker more than a winger. You've now got Fabio Silva. You've now got Raul Jimenez. You need to get Adama Traore into the team somehow, whether that be off the bench. You've got Pedro Neto. So going forward, they've got options. How it's going to fit together, I'm not too sure. What's going to happen with Raul Jimenez as well, I'm not too sure. Will he make a move maybe towards the end of the transfer window? There hasn't been much muted about whether that's going to happen or not, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened, to be honest, because they paid a lot of money for Fabio Silva, and for someone who isn't really, he's not tested in senior football yet. He's an insane talent, don't get me wrong. Will they keep hold of Jimenez for another season and sort of use him as to put an arm around the shoulder of Silva and as he comes through? Because I don't think he could lead the line at the minute anyway. So it's really, really strange, to be honest. It's really interesting, to be honest, more than strange, to see what happens with Wolves next season. There's been a lot of frustration in this transfer window as well about the lack of activity until they signed Silva yesterday, and I think defensively a little bit worried letting Matt Doherty go to Spurs, and going into the season with like two wing backs I think they've got. So definitely want to keep an eye on. And then it was Ruben Neves. Yeah, he did have a quieter season, and he still alongside João Moutinho. It's usually, if Wolves play well, one of those two will have played well. Neves is obviously that deeper player. He likes to control proceedings. He's still so talented. I really, really like him. I've loved him for a long, long time, to be honest. I was gutted when he moved from Porto. I wanted Porto to keep hold of him for a little bit longer. But that was made up for him to get the move to a big club like Wolves, and they were in the Championship at the time. And I think a lot was being said of, why has he took a step down? Why has he went to the Championship? But I think they were so confident in the project that, this won't be for long. We'll be in the Premier League, and then soon we'll be in the Europa League, and not long after that we'll be in the Champions League. And I think that's always been the 5 to 7 year plan for Wolves. And I think they're in year 4 of it now, maybe going into year 5, and you've had promotion, won the Championship, promotion to the Premier League, a 7th place finish, Europa League. I think they got to the round of 16, or might have even been the quarterfinal. Then the season after, you finish 7th again. It's sort of just, it's growing and growing and growing, and if they can sustain that and make that big push into the top 6, which is so difficult to push through that glass ceiling. I mean, I know as an Everton fan myself, it's a very difficult thing to push through. We've been trying for years with so many finances coming in. So, but yeah, I think they've got a really interesting project. They've got a manager who quite clearly believes in the group of players. He likes to have a small squad. He doesn't like to rotate too much. He likes to have a close-knit group that he can keep an eye on. He doesn't want a massive squad filled with superstars. He wants players who he knows will work for him and will buy into what they're trying to do. But 3 very, very talented players. And I think Pedro Neto is one of the most exciting players in Europe for his age group. I really rate him. I think he'll go on to do massive things, to be honest. I think maybe stay at Wolves for a couple more years and see what they do. If they can continue competing in Europe, there's no reason for them to go anywhere else. I think sometimes journalists are very eager to sell Wolves as players just for the fact that they're at Wolves and they think they should be doing better. But if they're all collectively buying into this European project, there's no reason why they can't try and establish themselves. But if he does continue on this trajectory, I don't think it'll be long before he does go to one of those big sides in Europe. But yeah, very interesting. And as someone who's based in the UK, it's very interesting for me to see as well, and to keep quite a close eye on. And I speak to a couple of people who are connected to the club and journalists surrounding the club, and they're made up with what's happened, and they've really bought into it, the whole Portuguese influence. So yeah, no, it's great to see.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a very interesting project. When I look over, and it's also been done very, very methodically, hasn't it? They haven't gone, for example, and spent crazy amounts of money. They haven't just thrown it around. I mean, I didn't realize you're an Everton fan, but yeah, you look at Everton. Obviously, it looks like you've made some good signings this summer. Actually, I think we'll see how it goes. I've got an Everton podcast with someone coming on next week, and there's a wasp in my room. That's great. And yeah, so we are. There's a massive wasp just flying around in my room. It just went near my face. No, so looking at Everton, if I get stung, then that's going to be great comedy for the listeners. But obviously, looking at the way Wolves have spent money, it's been very methodical. It's been very impressive. They haven't gone and spent huge amounts and destroyed their wage bill, for example, like other teams have done in the past. But let's move on to Fabio Silva, because I look at Raul Jimenez. I would love him at Man United. I know he's approaching probably 30, but he's a sort of player that is exactly what United need. They need something different, a target man, someone that holds the ball up really well, someone that's a threat in the box in terms of getting on the end of crosses. But the fee is big, isn't it? You're looking at 50 million. I wouldn't be surprised if Juventus do come in if they don't get Suarez, but it looks like that might happen. But then you've looking at Wolves, they bought Fabio Silva, who's very highly rated. I can't say I've seen much of him, hence why I've got you on the podcast. Club record fee of 35 million. What sort of player is he? And what is he going to offer Wolves? As you said, he probably won't lead the line. I agree with that. He's still very young. And what sort of challenges is he going to face? Because, we've seen a lot of players move to the Premier League, very, very talented players. You look at the likes of Angel Di Maria, there's Varane, there's lots of very good players that have joined, Andrei Shevchenko, and they've really struggled to adapt. And is that something that's a worry for Wolves fans?
I think the biggest worry is just not putting too much pressure on him too young, too soon. So this is a player who hasn't played a lot of senior football. I think he's got 2 goals for FC Porto's first team. But this is a player I've watched a lot at youth level, both internationally and for his club sides. He was the type of player he is, he's lethal in front of goal, but he loves to get assists. He loves to get on the ball and dictate proceedings. He loves to play in through balls, and he loves to slide in wingers. He likes to just get on it. He's very active. He's a very active player. He's not a number 9 who's content to just stand up front and wait for chances. He's so talented. I mean, he's those who've been especially paying attention to the youth football. I mean, the UEFA Youth League, for example, last season. So they won that. FC Porto won that. They were the first Portuguese team to win the Youth League, beat Chelsea in the final. He was instrumental throughout the whole tournament, and his numbers sort of show what type of player he is. I think he played 9 matches. He scored 5, but he assisted 4. So it's like he does it. He can do it both. He can do it all. And now he's coming to the Premier League, where, as you say, lots of players come and lots of players fail, and sometimes those players will then go on to other leagues and excel, and it's not always a bad thing. It's just not a good fit sometimes. But for him, what he needs to do, he needs to come and he needs to continue growing at a normal pace. He cannot be accelerated to right in the starting lineup every week, because he hasn't even had that in Portugal, never mind in England, where the intensity is going to go through the roof, the physicality goes through the roof, the actual speed of thought goes through the roof. You've got to do everything a lot quicker. He's not even going from Premier League football to the Premier League. He's going from under 23 football to the Premier League. So how Wolves are going to handle that, they obviously, as you say, they're very methodical. They know exactly what they're doing at all times, and they know how they're going to handle this player. They know how they're going to utilise him. I hope they'll know who's staying at the club and who's leaving the club, and what the roles are going to be going into the 2020-21 season. They just need to sort of relay that message to the fans as well, to not put too much pressure on him and expect him to come in and do great things straight away. He's got the potential to be a world beater, and he really has. He's got the potential to be one of the best strikers in the world. But he's still so young. I think sometimes price tags can weigh heavy on a player as well. Now, 40 million euros, you think, it is quite expensive. The club record fee, as you mentioned, his release clause was 125 million. The only reason why Porto basically can't hold the cards to the chest and say, right, well, if you're not paying it, you're not having them, is they're in deep financial trouble anyway. Because of FFP, and they've got to sort of balance the books out. They've got to sell so many players and make so many millions. So for them, it's an easy 40 million. They're not going to really miss a player that they've never really had anyway. He's never really been in the first team picture. He's been sort of progressed nicely in the academy, the right pace, I think. Lots of people say he should have got more chances in the first team. That's possibly true. But his development has been his developments, and they're thinking, right, that's 40 million off. That maybe keeps a more high-profile player, someone who they wouldn't get as much money back for, someone like an Alex Telles, someone who's 27 going on 28. And the thing is with Silva as well, if a player comes through the Portuguese youth system, they get 100% of the transfer fee, whereas in Portugal the transfer fees work a little bit differently. They might, if they sell Telles for, I don't know, say 30 million, and that's being generous considering his age, they don't see that full 30 million. So it would be 10% goes to this company and 25%, and then his image rights, 50% of his rights are owned by this other company. And so it's although third party ownership is no longer really a thing, it still goes on. So I think for the people at Porto, it's a good deal. If he goes on to be a world beater, it'll be one of those, we should have just kept hold of him, but it's not a risk they can afford to take, I don't think. But no, very, very good player. And I'll got more into the financial side of it there, but he is a superb talent. I posted an article on him yesterday. So if anybody's listening and hasn't really saw much of him, you can check that out. That's on the website. So that notes the challenges he's going to face, the type of player he is, what he'll give Wolves, and just a bit of background on him. But yeah, fantastic talent.
Absolutely. What we'll do, Aaron, is we'll put the article link in the description so the fans can, listeners can have a read of it. Let's go on to the last question. I appreciate I've taken a lot of your time today, but can you pick 3 players who are really highly rated in the Portuguese league, and are they the sort of players that you choose? Are they the sort of players you can see going to the very top?
Yeah, 3 players. It's just so many. This generation that's coming through at the minute. There's a generation of players born in 1999 and 2000, and a lot of those players were part of the sides who won the under-17 European Championships and the under-19 European Championships a year later. There's so many players in that, the likes of Florentino Luis, and we've just saw Tsinsao, who's just moved from Braga to Barcelona, is another fantastic talent. But in terms of the less high-profile names, trying to think of some people that might not have heard of. There's a player called Thiago Dantas who plays for Benfica's B team. Sorry, is the youth team. Now they went to the final of the Youth League themselves this season, and he was phenomenal in that. He's a central midfielder. He can play slightly out on the left. It's like a left midfielder, but he's like a number 8. He's not big. He's not built. He's not really physical. I think he's only about 5'6", but he's just so intelligent on the ball. He's one of those players, when you watch him, you can see like players can't get near him, and he always seems to have that like yard or 2 yards ahead of other people. Technically, he's so good on the ball. His short and long passing range is phenomenal. I think Dantas is younger than that generation, to be honest. I think he's only about 17 or 18. Now, Benfica fans are already calling for him to be near the first team picture. Whether he'll get looked after properly is one thing. Sometimes these players are sold on a little bit too young, and then they spend a couple of years trying to rebuild the career. I hope they look after him. I hope if he goes somewhere, he takes the right move, the right risk. But he is phenomenal. So that's Thiago Dantas. That'll be a player that will come back to this interview in a couple of years' time, and be like, yeah, that's him. I don't know who he's going to move to, but he's a fantastic player. I think he's one player that I'd probably pin hopes of doing something marvelous is him. Then there's another, Eduardo Quaresma. No relation to Ricardo, unfortunately, but he's got all the flair of Ricardo, and for a central defender, that's always a good thing. He's sort of came into the team. He plays for Sporting. He's came in recently because Ruben Amorim, the manager, he's a big fan of the youth. He's a big promoter of the youth. So he did the same thing when he was at Braga for a short spell, and then obviously he's moved to Lisbon. And he's continued doing it. He's promoted him into the first team. They now play 3 central defenders, so 3 at the back. And he's a defender very much in the mould of like a Ricardo Carvalho. And that's a massive compliment, because Ricardo Carvalho is one of my favourite players ever from any nation. But it's that sort of calm on the ball. He is always positionally knows where he needs to be. He's a little bit raw at times. He's a little bit rash, a little bit raw at times. But as he continues to develop, he'll be. I can already see him making a move within a year or 2. But obviously, as a central defender, he's got years to go until he's the finished article. But there was a clip I saw doing the rounds on Twitter recently. He was over on the right hand side of the back 3, and the defender sort of came near him. He's moved, turned his body, rolled the ball, and just flicked it with the outside of his foot through the defender's legs, and then just sort of moved into midfield. He's now like in the number 6 position. He's moved, and then he's like adjusted his body and just played in a pass to like a through ball to a winger, and it's like, this guy's a defender. Like, it's very like early John Stones at Everton. That sort of.
That's the dream, isn't it, for the modern football fan and the modern manager, because they want ball playing centre backs.
Yeah, and I say he's tall. He's strong. He's not a bulldozer type. Like, he's not like he's not a John Terry. But if out of those 2, that partnership, he'd be the Ricardo Carvalho. If he can get a John Terry alongside him, again, frightening prospect. And then third player, I'm trying to be fair, so I've took one from Benfica, I've took one from from Sporting, take one from Porto. There's so many. I would have went probably with Fabio Silva, to be honest. There's another player, Thomas Esteves. He's a fullback, really, really talented, good getting up and down the pitch. He started making first team appearances towards the end of the season. He's been linked with Wolves. I think he's like Fabio Silva's like his best mate. They both the same age group, both came through together. Then there's another fullback who you might have heard of, Nuno Mendes, plays for Sporting. The left back, I saw he was on Twitter, like Manchester United fans talking about him, possibly linked to him, possibly being very good, very, very good. He's a good defender, which I have to put emphasis on, because sometimes when we talk about fullbacks, we're so quick to say, he can beat a man and he can get up the pitch and he can put a cross in, but he can defend as well, which is like...
which is a rarity. now, if you're a good defender, have you noticed this? Now, if you're like, Wan-Bissaka is one of the best one-on-one defenders in Europe. But now, if you're a good defender, that's like, oh, he can't go forward. He can't do assists. Yeah. He's not like Trent. And I'm like, your first job is to defend, mate. It's to defend. Look, you need to have the attacking output. But no, I'm interested to hear about Nuno Mendes, because a lot of people have been talking about him. I'm not going to confess I've seen much of him, but is he someone that could make the step up straight away?
Whether he could make it straight away, I'm not too sure. But to be honest, the more he plays, he's featured a little bit in the pre-season so far for Sporting, and it's all sort of pointing towards him having a real breakthrough season next season. Again, he's under a manager in the same team as Eduardo Quaresma. Those two will be playing under a manager next season that will give them minutes, that will believe in them, put faith in them, and that'll help him. And then, depending on how he goes this season coming, but I think he needs that breakthrough season. He's been linked away with moves now. Now's probably a little bit too soon, I think. But I think if he has this season, or even half season up until the January transfer window, but he can defend. He's a good one-on-one defender. He's quick as well, so you're not getting past them too easily if you're a winger, which is, as a fullback, to have that pace is it's going to help you out, tenfold. The goal forward, he's good. He's got a good short passing range, so he likes to link up with midfielders and play 1-2s and overlap and overload. But yeah, you've only got to type his name into Twitter and just have a look at the Portuguese side of Twitter, the Sportingistas, the ones who watch him regularly and know what he's about. They all want him in that starting 11. They want him first name on the team sheet, so that tells you a lot. But sometimes the Portuguese are a hard lot to impress, but he's very, very talented. Yeah.
Aaron, this has been an absolutely incredible insight. I just want to thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, and just let listeners know where they can find your podcast, and obviously we'll put your @handle in the outro, but where can they find your great articles?
Yeah, so it's www.PROXIMA, which is PROXIMA, and then a dash, JORNADA.com. Nice and easy, dash in the middle. The Proxima Jornada podcast, you'll be able to find that's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the usual places. I think it's on everywhere now, to be honest. So there's one episode up at the minute. Recently interviewed Derek Ray, who's a commentator and a German Bundesliga expert. So spoke to him about Luca Waldschmidt, who's just moved to Benfica from Freiburg. And then I spoke to a journalist from the Evening Standard who reports on Tottenham, and I spoke about Jan Vertonghen's move to Benfica. So 2 good interviews there in that podcast. Then on Twitter, as you say, the handle will go on. That's just @PROXIMAJornada1. That is the place where all the links to the articles go. So when a new article comes out or a new interview, if you go onto the interview side of the website, I've interviewed Leicester's Ricardo Pereira, Gonzalo Cardoso at West Ham, Ronnie Lopez, who was, when he was at Sevilla, he's just moved to the French league now. Who else? Nuno Gomes, interviewed him. So there's lots of stuff on there, and there's lots of historical pieces as well, which I know the fans enjoy. So going back in time and momentous things that have happened. If you're just getting into Portuguese football now and you need a little bit of a refresher course, a little bit of a dip your toe into different, major things that have happened in the game over the years, that's the perfect place to go. But yeah, that was a long enough plug, wasn't it?
Honestly, mate, you're doing some great work, and it's been absolutely brilliant. It's been a pleasure. And to all the listeners, just make sure you check out Aaron's brilliant page. We'll chuck all the handles, and we'll put everything in the links below. But make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Aguero!